Hey guys, it's your boy Corey, and we're back at it again with another cooking episode. And today we're making scallion pancakes, and oh man, I've been sucked into the land of stock intros. My bad, sorry guys. Scallion pancakes are truly one of the great morning snacks. If you eat snacks in the morning and you gorge yourself like I do, it's a really easy recipe. Just some flour, water, salt, baking powder, all mixed together makes an easy dough that can be prepared and rested and be ready in roughly 20 minutes. For the exact measurements of the flour and water I use in the dough, or the hydration ratio, I use 3/4 cup of scalding water to the 2 cups of flour, as well as a sprinkle of salt and a tiny pinch of baking powder. So you're gonna not want to use the scalding water that I did. I pretty much boiled the water that I used, and don't do that because then the dough becomes incredibly difficult to work with, and you're gonna have to let it cool for a moment, or you're gonna seethe your hands into the depths of hell, of dough hell, if you work with it really hot water. Just use warm tap water. I actually learned how to make scallion pancakes from my grandmother, and I did lose the written recipe and therefore all the proportions to the depths of time. However, I believe most of the technique is the same here. I think a few differences with the ingredients that I made were I used exclusively hot water, whereas some recipes call for hot and cold water, and I threw in some baking powder, which my grandmother definitely did not use. We are going to want to knead our dough, but we're not going to knead it to death like we would with a pizza dough or a sourdough loaf. We just want it to be slightly elastic, just so that when you touch it, it bounces back a little, just so we can get some level of flakiness and the entire thing won't just be extremely dense. The baking powder in this case also helps and develops some of the layers and makes it nice and airy. So now when you're getting the scallions, which is probably the only ingredient that you don't already have in your fridge, for the scallion pancakes, you want to get a lot of scallions. I used 2 bunches for the amount of dough that I made, and I had to really stretch it out. So if you love your scallion pancakes rich with the oniony flavor, you're going to want to get more than 2 bunches because in this case, I salted my scallions before throwing them on the pancake in order to intensify their flavor. And also, this process drew a lot of the water out and shrunk them down, which is something that I didn't really account for. So you're going to want to get a butt ton of scallions. And so in the time that you've cut your scallions up and doused them with some salt, your dough will have been rested, and in my case, it cooled down from its really hot state. So now we're going to shape it, cut the log in half, and then cut the 2 logs you get in half, and then form some round balls, which will become the scallion pancakes that we use. You don't necessarily have to make them into balls because when we stretch them out, we kind of want it to be a bit of a square because we're going to do some rolling magic in order to build the layers. Sort of like lamination on a croissant, or making a cinnamon roll. Probably a marriage of those 2 pastries in the technique we're going to be using to make the scallion pancakes. And so what I mean by a marriage of 2 pastries is that in terms of technique, we are going to roll out our dough ball into a long sheet and then put the fat on it and the toppings on it, similar to how croissants are made when you take the butter, the big slab of butter, and you plop it on, and then you fold the sides of the dough over and then roll it out again and again and again to build the layers. This is partly how we're going to build the layers. I'm going to brush some sesame oil over the top, and then we'll hit it up with some of the scallions in order to get ready to roll it out. When you're filling the insides of your scallion pancake, you do not want to overfill it. Putting in too much oil or scallions will result in something in the effect of popping a zit when you roll it out. What I mean is, as you roll it out, onions and oil will gush out the sides, and it'll look not as good and be somewhat painful, like popping an actual zit. And so once we've rolled it up once, we're going to roll up the log into a nice, beautiful little doughy seashell. That's what it should look like. Tuck the other end underneath and seal it, just so that it doesn't pop out when you're rolling out the scallion pancake. And when you're rolling, you want to be gentle towards the edges, just so that you don't get that aforementioned zit effect. Some spillage and ruptures will be inevitable, but if that does happen, you can just scoop up the liquid and the scallions and place it back on top, and it'll get nice and crispy in the pan. Once you've folded your first pancake, you can start some sesame oil on the pan. Get it ripping hot so you get that nice sizzle effect. Once again, I didn't get it because I was impatient and didn't let the oil heat up enough. It doesn't matter what oil you use. I've found that the oil doesn't necessarily impart such a strong flavor unless you're using a very high quality, like say olive oil or something with a lot of flavor in it. Ooh, you gotta love the sound and the smell of a scallion pancake on a nice fat layer of oil. These are a great breakfast because I think that breakfast shouldn't really be sweet, and these are the substitute for the regular American buttermilk pancakes. They puff up the same because of the baking powder I put in, which we'll see, quick time lapse of shortly of them puffing up, I guess, a little. And they're really salty, so you chug a lot of water and fill yourself up and are hydrated and ready for the day. And so once your scallion pancakes are done, let them cool for a moment and then cut them into however many slices you want. These are extremely flaky. Because of the way we rolled it up into that seashell and then rolled it out again, it almost had the effect of the lamination of a croissant, right? As you can see, it's really flaky, and there are a bunch of beautiful layers.